get sent monthly financials from Rosetta? You don't?
I have.
You're talking about
You
the
do?
O&M and that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, you do. Okay. And I understand, I'd asked Carrie Hardwick why, I'd asked for the 6-month financials. I guess they're not available because there's some kind of they're not ready yet, so I'm assuming it's some kind of a handover issue with ICON. But I did want to ask, since we are coming up to the budget workshop, frankly, I think the optics are not ideal that the board has not reviewed a single set of monthly financials since the start of the fiscal year on October 1st. I think the optics aren't good. But secondly, when the financials are not on the agenda, they're not in the budget pack. And when they're not in the budget pack, people have to request them. Now you have people like me who, not a shrinking violet as somebody once said to me, but most people don't understand that they can request them. So I would just ask you to keep in mind, when they're not on the agenda, I think it potentially is really a transparency issue. And
I can't think of a month when they weren't available, Jill. I'm not sure what months you're talking about since October. I believe the financials, the O&M, and the financial reports
I've requested them, but the board has never, gone through them as part of the course of your agenda.
The procedure that we have established
Okay.
is to get them to the board members early. We gather our questions together. We submit our questions to Belinda. And then for the sake of expediency, she answers all those questions and we move on. So they are in fact reviewed.
But when I would come back to transparency, because I don't see those questions and nobody else sees those questions, and I could make a pain of myself to Belinda and say, can I have the latest list of, emails back and forth between the board? So, but I hear your point that the meetings are long about expediency, but maybe there's a way to bridge that gap, potentially maybe summarize it at a subsequent meeting, could be an option.
That's a possibility, but
Yeah.
it certainly is.
Okay.
It certainly is not I hear you speaking of optics. This is not something that's being hidden in any way. It's right
Well,
out there in the
sure
open.
but
Just as in this
what we
particular
see.
packet, with the O&M, not only did you have the numbers, but then you had all the receipts.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it was 48 pages if you look through it.
There were no financials in this packet, though.
Yes, there were.
They're on the digital agenda.
There's no there's
No, there are no financials in
There's
this.
O&M.
O&M is in this one, and it's,
Jill,
But
you're coming up
Okay.
You're coming up. to
You get my
your
point, thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Audrey Peabody.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker, Bob Rufato.
Good morning, Bob Rufato, 326 Monte Luna. On April 12th, the board approved the renovation of the existing pool bar, but it didn't address the question, do we have the money to pay for it or how much we were willing to spend? Meeting comments suggest there is a $180,000 carry forward balance. Frankly, that seems odd. If we're building a balance, the CDD is charging higher assessments than necessary. Then again, maybe that's money set aside for the dog park and pickleball courts. It's a bad idea to fund new capital projects out of reserves. You can't do that without creating problems and raising assessments. As is, most residents probably don't realize that the $400,000 transferred between the reserve accounts to fund the dining room upgrade increased assessments and increased unfunded reserves. Last year, I said the unfunded reserve balance might be more than $2 million. Nobody disagreed. If we don't want to increase assessments, make the reserve problem worse, or waste more money on unnecessary design fees, the board should set a reasonable budget for the pool bar renovation. Based on the architect's estimate 2 months ago, expanding the pool bar by 20 feet will drive construction costs over $400,000. We spent $650,000 to remodel a dining room that generates $750,000 of revenue. A proportional expenditure for a pool bar that generates $100,000 would be less than $90,000. While some try to rationalize that amenities are expensive, spending must make sense. We can't pour money into assets without understanding how they are used and the benefit they provide. In this case, revenue is a great way to evaluate usefulness and fairness. By spending less today, we can minimize additional assessments and look forward to a day when we can modernize and create a well-located casual food venue that doesn't irritate neighbors and pool users, is convenient to bathrooms and parking, has space to accommodate everybody, and is accessible to all.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Renee Perlman. There being no further speakers, supervisors, we're going to close our public comment at this time and move forward with our agenda. The next item on the agenda is the district engineer staff report. Rick?
Well, I'm glad to be back. Anyway, the paving work was done.
Rick, could you use the mic, please?
Yes. Yeah, the paving work that was done recently on the lands in Reviso has been completed, with the exception of the striping. And I just traded some text with the vendor, so hopefully we'll have that done by the end of the week. They also, when they were out here, we had 2 other places that we saw that really needed to be fixed. Small, but we fixed them also. And then the sidewalk repairs, all the grinding has been completed, but none of the removal and replacement. And I traded some text with the vendor, and that's supposed to be done this week. And really, that's all I had.
Rick, what, may I ask, because this is a catch up for me, quite honestly. When we're talking about the sidewalk repairs, where are we talking about specifically?
I
Gave us the whole.
don't know what it turns out. Every year, we come out and we look at everything.
that's-
We look at all of your assets, your striping, the paving, we look at everything and we put together the bid. Gets the areas.
Very good, that explains it. Thank you.
Rick, before you're done, I just wanted to discuss with the board, we've been waiting on common area 6A and 6B, which was conveyance from Lennar. This board has already authorized the acceptance of the deed and related documents, but we were waiting on punch list items. And I believe Rick can certainly speak for himself, but through emails that you've signed off on that. So I have gotten updated documents and I'm going to give them the thumbs up. And then we will get a deed and an affidavit of no liens. I got an updated title report and they confirmed that there are no taxes due.
Okay.
So,
Will that be something you can report on at the next board meeting?
sure, once I have those conveyance.
Yeah, that's what I
documents,
said.
I can include it as well, absolutely.
Any other questions for Rick? Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Moving forward with the agenda, we now have item number 4A, which is the public hearing on the River Club rules.
Board members, I just want to talk a little bit about the process first this morning. And also, before we get into this, let me just jump in on one item. I know you've got an email from Mike Krejci about the geothermal. I just wanted to let you know that we have prepared the contract on that. And so it's in the process of getting executed and such. So switching back to the public hearing, this morning, those of you that have been on the board, I'm sure remember the process. But what we'll do is we'll get a motion and a second to open the public hearing. We'll take whatever comments everybody has and the input that they want to provide. Then we'll get a motion and a second to close the public hearing. And then this board will have your opportunity to debate and go through the different rules and make whatever changes you want to make. Send an email over the weekend. There's been a lot of discussion about how things were enforced in the past, what a past rule meant or didn't mean. The reason that we teed this up this way is so that you have full opportunity today to make whatever rules you want, within reason, of course, but whatever rules you want with regards to the amenities and the tennis rules. And then we'll all be on the same page. We'll be clarified as to what you want in terms of rules and enforcement, and we'll move forward in that direction. So, and after the conclusion of your discussion, and when you have the rules in the form that you think that you want them, then there is a resolution in the agenda package, and that resolution you would consider, and if you're so inclined to pass it, then we would simply staple to it the result of your discussion of those respective rules. So if there's no questions, what we'd be looking for initially is a motion and then a second to open the public hearing.
I move.
I'll second that.
Carl, second by Rich. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
The public hearing is now open. So at this point, we've opened up the public hearing and we are going to move forward with audience comments. First person I have listed is Pat Hinch.
Good morning.
Good morning, Pat.
My name is Pat Hinch. I live at 194 Valenza Loop. I am a member of the Racket Sports Advisory Committee, but I am speaking today as a resident and as a tennis player. I play social tennis and I play team tennis, so I cover the gamut. I want to speak in support of proposed tennis rule number 1, which is blocking time for weekly social tennis programs for Venetian residents. This rule was unanimously approved in 2021 by the current Racket Sports Advisory Committee and in 2020 by the previous Recreational Advisory Committee. We have 6 tennis courts and a lot of active tennis players, especially from October through May. The committees recommend this rule to attempt to give as many social players as possible an opportunity to play during season. Court reservations open up 3 days in advance of play, with a lot of residents vying for a limited number of courts. Having Charlie reserve courts for social groups helps ensure that they will have an opportunity to play on a first-come, first-served basis. The social groups can limit who participates based on gender and ability level. At the Venetian, there are also a number of social groups that are run by the residents. Most of these social groups are by invitation and not open to all residents, so courts are not reserved by Charlie. I play in one on Saturday, and we reserve our own courts 3 days in advance. Sometimes we don't get all the courts that we want or need, so some people don't get to play or play at a later time. We accept this, as that's how we've chosen to organize. Charlie also reserves courts for league and interclub home matches. I am on one of the ladies' teams. There are many men and women's league and interclub teams here at the Venetian. The men's are determined according to age, and the women's team rosters are determined by playing level. Matches begin at 10 a.m. due to league rules that govern match start times. This does limit available courts for social players, particularly on Wednesdays and on Thursdays, when 1 women's team and 3 men's teams play back-to-back. All 8 o'clock courts, however, on those days are available for anyone to book. On Thursday, women are the home team every other week, so those 9:30 courts do open up on alternate Thursdays. Our committee is trying to open up more courts for social play. It has been requested that the leagues allow for later start times, but we don't know what their decision will be. This past year, due to COVID, we did host more home matches here, but that won't happen again because all of the other clubs will be able to host home matches. For one of our ladies' leagues, we field 4 courts. The other, we have 3. Although the match courts are reserved by Charlie, only 8 players and 6 players respectively get to play each week. My team roster is between 14 and 18 ladies, so no one plays every week on a pre-reserved court. Our captains try to get everyone who wants to play into some matches. These are competitive leagues, so some players will play more than others, and we accept that as well. New residents at the Venetian with interest in playing teams are welcome and added to the rosters based on level of play for the women and age for the men. We also added a number of players to our team this year because their team was dissolved, and that also limits them the amount of times that we all get to play because we have more people. I really want to point out and stress that there is nothing dangerous about any of these rules. And there is nothing in any of these rules that is going to make your jobs as supervisors more onerous. They're common sense changes, and it's based on feedback from residents as well as data collected in the 2017 and 2020 resident surveys. Most of the residents that will speak against this rule participated in team tennis over many years. Some still do. I've been teammates with some of them. And I just want to point out that it's difficult to manage court usage in a way that pleases everyone, but two separate committees, by their votes to recommend this rule, think this will make things more fair. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Roger Quinn.
Good morning.
Hey, Roger.
Very simply, I'm talking about rules number 1 and 2. And to date, I've talked to most of the people who have run those groups that they are referring to, the groups that are set aside by Charlie. And there's no problems. Nobody has said that anybody wanted to come on. Nobody has said that there's a problem. I mean, we're talking about making a rule for something that at this point in time doesn't exist. The rules assume that if there is a problem and it reaches management level, AKA Charlie, that the issue will not be resolved. This in spite of the fact that Charlie has committed to working closely with the groups on scheduling, court assignments, and adding new players with fairness and inclusion. Now, the end result of all this, and they can say what they want about where it's going to wind up, but it's going to wind up in your lap. If people don't like what's happening, and if this rule is put up for adjustment, it will come to you to make the final decision about who plays, when they play, what team they play on. I don't think you want that. Thank you.
Thank
Roger,
you.
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Why can't, and I asked you this in an email, why can't the tennis community come together and compromise these rules? What's your opinion on that?
The tennis community can come together. The tennis community can come together. There's nothing, I mean, come together to do exactly what, I mean, right now, Charlie does set times aside for various groups because people love to play in that kind of thing. They love to play. And as I say, there has been no problem with it. I don't know why we're talking about rules when there's no problem. If there was a problem, I'd be sitting here saying, okay, that's fine, let's have a rule, but let's leave it at management level. This isn't what this committee is about. This committee is about taking care of heavy-duty financial things, heavy-duty repair things. This is not what you're about. You're not about deciding who plays on which court.
Amen.
Let me ask you a question. You said there is no problem. The speaker before you said there is a problem. So how do we rectify that? Number one. And number two, our responsibility is to all residents, okay? And so please adjust how we can come, as Chairman Bracco has said, to a conclusion that will support play by everyone who wants to play.
Okay, well, wasn't a committee created by this body to address issues of this nature?
Right.
What's the purpose of having a committee if people can circumvent the committee and come up with their own ideas unless they have petitioned the committee first prior to coming here?
Could we just ask the committee to come up with some verification that there is really a problem, that there are people that have complained about this?
I think they've done that, but I
Well, we
believe that.
have quite a few other speakers, Roger.
That's fine. Let's
Okay.
do it.
I'm interested in hearing what they have to say. Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
to the place.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Pam Perry. Pam?
Good morning.
Hey, Pam.
My name is Pam Perry, and I live at 317 Montaluna Drive. I'm speaking today in support of proposed rule number 1, blocking time for weekly social tennis programs for Venetian residents. This rule was unanimously approved in 2020 by the Recreational Advisory Committee and recently approved by the Racket Sports Committee. So let's start with some facts. Number 1, the only courts that the Tennis Pro Shop reserves are for league and interclub home matches during the season. The match times are mandated by the Suncoast and the Tri-Cities leagues. Number 2, the tennis staff reserves 3 to 4 courts every Saturday morning for an all-comers mixer. This mixer is open to anyone who wants to play. Number 3, there are several social groups that are organized only by residents. The tennis staff does not reserve any courts for any of the various social groups. Each social group has individuals that are signed up to play and given assignments to reserve courts. Although we strive to get the number of courts we need, there are times when we don't, and we need to get a court in another time. Number 4, if the tennis staff is required to reserve courts for one social group, it opens Pandora's box to the tennis staff needing to reserve courts for any and all social groups. It also excludes players of the same ability level and gender. I hope you find this rule to be fair and equitable. I appreciate your support for approving Rule 1 and our other proposed rules. Thank you.
Pam, could I ask you a question? Sure. Are you saying that that inequity exists?
Inequity from what perspective?
Booking courts?
No, the way it's always been is that there are people that are assigned courts to reserve for social play, and because there's only 6 courts, you've got people that are contending to try to get other courts. So like I said, is that we may need 4 courts based on the number of people that have signed up to play that week, but maybe we can only get 3. So one of the other courts would have to be playing at either an earlier or a later time.
Is everybody faced with the same issue of 3 days in advance trying to get a time?
I'm sorry?
Is everybody faced with the same responsibility of the 3-day wait?
Yes.
All right, so
Yeah, 7:30, we sit there, Rich, with our palms sweating, ready to click that button to open up that court. And, you know, when we get it, we're thrilled. When we're not, we have to adjust. That's just the way it is. We've got a huge tennis community of people that play tennis, and we only have 6 courts. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah. Thank you, Pam.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask her a question? I was a little confused about something you said. You talked about, okay, you agree with this rule, but then you said if we block courts, then it opens a Pandora's box. That seems contradictory to me.
No, because if we are blocking courts for certain people.
So you said don't block courts for these social groups, do it for something that is open to everyone.
We need to have the courts open to everyone, yes.
Okay, so you're not against blocking, you're just against blocking for the ones that are already playing all the time.
No, what I'm saying, Denise, is that if we're blocking courts for one group, that's just wrong. We need to be able to do exactly what we've been doing for years. And that's to go on the reservation system and try to reserve your own court.
First come, first served, right?
Right.
Okay, I understand. I know
Okay.
which groups you're talking about, not to block, they're for their friends and different things, just what we have for the Saturday and the.
Right, the Saturday, and that's the other thing, is that Charlie originally was reserving 4 courts, 5 courts, but people weren't coming, and it's open to all social players. So I don't know why they don't come, but he continually is tenacious about offering the opportunity for social players to come on Saturday morning. Okay.
The three courts is it on Mondays that this occurs when Charlie sets the groups up? Is that the I'm trying to get a handle on what the problem is.
I don't know what you mean by the problem,
All right.
but Charlie sets the groups up.
We have to have a rule. We have to have a rule
Right.
enforced here. There must be a reason that we have to have a rule. So that's what I'm referring to as a problem. Do the people who have these groups sign up 3 days ahead like everybody else? Or is Charlie signing up these?
No, Charlie is not signing up.
All right, so they go
everybody.
through the same
And he
procedure.
shouldn't be, because he's got enough to do.
All right, but they go through the same procedure that anybody goes through.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right, that's all I wanted to know.
okay. Anybody else?
Thanks, Pam.
Our next speaker is Jerry Quinn.
It wasn't Monday that Charlie reserves the time, it's Saturday morning.
No, I'm at the group that where he is assigning the people to play. That's the
One social.
you're referring back to.
No, they don't do 3 days. He blocks the courts, they send in the names, but when they send in the names, it is sort of first come, first served.
Right, okay, as long as it's the same procedure, that's all.
But the courts are blocked.
My name is Jerry Quinn, and I reside at 101 Vestry Court. I would like to talk about rule number 1. If this rule is enforced because Charlie is blocking these courts, it should affect all the courts that Charlie blocks, and they should be open to all the Neeson residents, except that they may be segregated according to gender and level of play. That would include the men's 60s, 70s, 75s, 80s, and JUMPO, and also the women's 3-0, 3-5, 4-0, USTA, and women's interclub. All these courts are blocked by Charlie. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Audrey Peabody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Audrey Peabody. I live at Bella Vista Terrace. And I'd like to state my opposition to the new rule proposed by the rec committee, stating that only, quote, social groups desiring Charlie to block time must be open to everyone at that level and gender. This new rule seems to target a new group formed this year and with the previous rec committee's approval. This group was looking for some competitive tennis for women who were not on a team or on a team and did not get to play a lot. It consists of 3-0 and 3-5 players. It has around 30 women on the list already. We started with less, but as people came in over the season and requested to get on it, they were allowed on it. But it's already at 30 and we get 3 courts. This was formed, it's not just, I'm on a team. I play the button thing with everybody else for my social. I don't know the social thing, but for tennis that isn't directed by a team or Charlie. But Charlie runs this. He sets up our lineups. He tries to get a weaker player with a stronger player. And it's not like when I press the button and 4 of us or 8 of us or 12 of us are playing and we mix it up or whatever. Charlie runs it. It's an intra-club team, group. You can call it a team. It's intra-club. The others are all inter-club. The leagues, I'm on a league. It's fun. I've played USTA. And I've played inter-club where you play other teams. This is all members. We're all members, 30 members, trying to have an organized group that Charlie runs. The teams that play all have about 20 people on their roster. They're definitely not open to anybody. Everybody that's a 3-0 or a 3-5 can't go be on a team. You just can't. And the intra-clubs are generally invitation only. If the rules apply to them, it would ruin the tennis program. I mean, you just can't have it. I'm not suggesting you can. It just wouldn't be right. The new group gets 3 courts blocked for 1.5 hours only. Teams get 3 or 4, most get 4, blocked for 3 hours. When they play, it's a 3-hour block. We have 30 people asking for an hour and a half. Some members play on 2 or 3 teams. That's a pretty nice gig. They have 6 or 9 hours sometimes blocked out for them. The important point is to me, is the social connotation put on this group. It's my contention that we're all social players. You know, I don't care if you're a 2-5 or a 4-5. No one in this building except Charlie is a pro or anything else. We're all doing it for exercise, competition, and fun. There are definitely lots of better players, but we're all paying the same CDD fees. It's actually, to me, quite condescending for the committee to consider us only social players. Team players, which all the tennis players on the committee are, by the way, seem to differentiate themselves as more important or professional, or I don't know. I don't know what the difference is. I can't explain it to you. Probably they can. A group of competitive players who are all Venetian members should have the same rights as the teams. Any rule that's adopted should apply to everybody. Sincerely, Audrey. I think I took longer than I intended to.
Again, I have a question if I could.
Yes.
Your opinion, do we have too many teams? Because you seem to say that there are some people that play on 3 and 4 teams and they get to play for hours on end. I'm not a tennis player, so I'm asking you to educate
You
me.
know, we only have 6 courts, so it is an issue.
Are there, in your opinion, are there too many teams?
I don't think, I think we need to satisfy everybody. I don't think there are too many teams. Maybe there needs to be a rule that, I don't know, maybe you can only play on one team, maybe. That might make it more fair. And then you wouldn't have maybe as many USTA teams because everybody's already playing on a league team.
Okay.
That's something for the committee. And by the way, I did go to the committee with this, and a number of us did do this in front of the committee.
Okay.
So we're not jumping over them, coming to you, but we're looking for your help.
That's the way it's supposed to work. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Renee Perlman.
Good morning. My name is Renee Perlman. I live at 113 Medici Terrace. And I want to say that all the speakers before me did a wonderful job and a lot of research in making their presentations. Mine is relatively brief. I do want to comment about rule number 1 that is proposed in regard to the Monday mixer program. Those of us who have played all season in the Monday program are very unhappy about this proposed rule. We thoroughly enjoyed our program. The weekly Monday mix and match program was enjoyed by 12 to 16 ladies all season. Most of these ladies do not play on teams. There are many competitive teams, both men and women, whose courts are reserved weekly. The teams are also selective, and in fact, many of these players play up to 6 times a week and play on up to 4 teams. Unlike the teams, the Monday mix and match program does not host any outside players. We are all Venetian residents, and therefore should have the same priority over the numerous teams and their matches. If these teams are not open to all players at the Venetian, then how is it that not the same for the Monday program? Why is it fair that the teams can be selective and have courts reserved for them, and the Monday mix and match program can't be selective and also have 3 or 4 courts reserved for them? Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Can I clarify something? Everybody's done?
No.
Let's go through the rest of the speakers, okay?
Our next speaker is Alan Lanz. Mr. Lanz?
But I was going to present all the rules to the board. So I don't know if this is the right position to have him speak.
Did you have the speakers?
We don't have any others, unless, Unless
Well,
there's speakers that didn't sign up.
okay, but he's doing a presentation on behalf of the committee.
Okay, so it's more than just your
Yeah.
3 minutes or whatever.
Yes.
Can Ms. Perry just add a comment before Ellen starts?
I just want to clarify the discussion about the mix and match. Yes, there were 3 courts that were reserved every Monday for mix and match. The issue was that they only wanted to play who they wanted to play. They were not including everyone. They were not including everyone. And there are lots of people that want to play. And they wanted to basically hand select out of their group who they wanted to play, but they didn't want to open it up because maybe there would be somebody else that would come in that maybe wouldn't be as good a tennis player. So that's what the problem was.
But every team does the same thing. Every single team does the same thing.
This isn't a
right?
team, Rick. This isn't a team. There's a big difference between a team and social play. People that want
Oh,
to
but
play
the team members
socially
pay
should
more?
be allowed to play
Do
socially.
the team members pay more?
Pardon me?
Do they pay more? They have a larger assessment?
Well, we
No.
pay for our league. We
Well-
play to belong to a league, yes.
Right.
And we don't pay to
As a
belong
member
to
of
a
the
social
Venetian
because it's
Tennis,
already
right.
included. Okay.
Here we go.
Well,
No,
We've already,
no, that's it.
Well, she got to comment.
We let her speak.
once you
Okay.
did that,
Yeah,
Okay.
we let her speak.
okay,
There has never been a complaint on Monday's mix and match. The people that sign up on a timely basis. Barb Jasper asked Alan this question. Has anybody complained to you about not being able to play on Monday's mix and match? And he said, no, I have it in an email that he sent to her. We asked Charlie, did anybody ever complain about not being able to get in? No. Barb has never heard of anybody complaining that they weren't able to get in. This is not exclusive. We have 30 women on the team, and we put on anybody who wants to play on it can tell Charlie, and we put them on the list. There's never been a complaint. If the rule is not broken, why fix it?
thank you, Jerry.
If there are any other speakers that did not sign up and we did not call upon you and you wish to speak, now is the time to say so. Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry, I said I wasn't going to say anything. Here I am opening my big mouth again. 2 things. I think that the board needs to think about root cause analysis. Why is there so much passion around this issue? I think it's a question you need to ask yourselves why, and I'll tell you, and most of you know this, but I'm going to repeat it anyway. When I got here in 2018, I came over to the courts and said, how do we get involved in play? And the answer I got was, come back in October when the ladies come back for teams. And I thought, that's it, I'm out of here. And now I pay to play at 2 other clubs. And actually, one additional thing. There are people who wanted to play on the Monday group and were not asked. I live next door to one. She was very upset. So I know it's not easy to canvass everybody, et cetera, but it's not necessarily what it seems. Thanks.
Okay, I think we have one more speaker. Go ahead.
I haven't investigated this or anything, but I don't know why the Monday.
It's hard,
Can't hear a word you're
ma'am,
saying.
ma'am,
Can't hear you.
Could you
it's
come up?
hard, it's,
I wonder why.
no,
the-
it's-
Maybe your name
there
is
you
club.
right.
It's a name.
Hold on.
Joe Wiggins, 181 Savona Way. I just wonder why this can't be an intra-club versus an inter-club, and we could have it on Monday instead of mix and match.
Lou,
Thank you. Lou Perry, 317 Montaluna. The distinction between the Monday group and all the other social groups is that Charlie reserves it for one social group. All the other social groups come in and at the 7:30 try to get their courts. This is the only social group that Charlie does. If he does it for them, then he's going to have to do it for all of the social groups, which would never happen. It can't happen. It's impossible for him to do that. That's the biggest issue, because it's being closed and being run, and not open to the rest of the social groups, and it's not being open to the entire community. That's where the issue lies. Thank you.
Wait, I'm still trying to get a handle on this.
Right.
So Charlie books these 3 courts? He reserves them?
That's the
They
only.
don't push the button?
Right, it's the only social group. All the other, the inter-club, the tennis group, they play competitive tennis outside as well as inside. We bring other communities come in here and play competitive. It's all done by the leagues and everything. Charlie does not do any, he has to sign the groups because it's competitive tennis and it's during a certain time period. Social groups, labeled social groups, do their own signing up of courts other than this one.
Lou, this brings me to the question that I asked Pam.
Right.
Because I'm uncertain about this, and
Right.
I'd like to know. When I said, is everybody faced with the same chore at 7:30 in the morning trying to get those courts?
Other than the one group.
So what you're saying to me is that Charlie is making those arrangements for this one group.
That's correct.
So not everybody is held to the same standard, is what you're telling me.
That's correct.
There are some people that don't have to do that because there's somebody else doing it for
Yeah,
them.
well, nobody's against the social group. They're having a great time and stuff, but they're getting a privilege that the other social groups don't get. If they can do their Monday, they can get as many courts as they want if they do it the same way as everyone else does it.
So if that went away, would this whole thing be better?
Well,
If this privilege.
In the committee's opinion, it would be, and for everybody, the other social groups are upset that, well, if he's doing it for them, why can't he do it for us? I mean, you have a Saturday morning that takes up 6 courts, everybody does it on their own. Sunday morning, another social group, get it on their own. During the week, at 8 o'clock in the morning, they get their own courts, and the list goes on.
So what you're saying in essence is everybody's equal, but some people are more equal than others.
That's,
In a sense? I mean, if a court is being booked and I don't have to get up at 7:30 in the morning.
Correct.
And fight to get a place.
Correct.
Because somebody's doing it for me.
Yes,
Then I have a privilege that other people don't have.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes.
Why is it then just for that one day?
That's the day they chose. I don't know.
All right, well, let me, just a point of order that I want to ask. I'm hoping eventually we're going to hear from Charlie and Denise about some of this. So you're going to get a chance.
Well, this is the public comment part.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we need to provide those that have not spoken the opportunity to speak, and we do have speakers in the back.
Can I just answer that one question?
I would prefer that we
Let's
move forward
get
unless
this-
the board really wants to.
I'd like to get this lady in the back, and we'll get back to you, Roger.
Yeah,
Because I want to be sure about the answer I got.
Yeah, me too.
Good morning.
Sorry.
Your name, please?
Suzanne Jerry, 118 Savona Way. And perfect point to make this morning is I got up at 6:45, well, 6:30. So, sorry. I got up at 6:30 this morning to make a court appointment for 7:30 today for my team. And I sat up there and poised and ready, and I'm watching, I have my phone open, sitting watching the whole thing, and I took a picture at 7:29 this morning. I could not get on at 7:30. 7:31, there it is. The court is gone. It's gone. And we only play Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays. But, we're sitting there waiting. We don't play that often. We get up to do this, and we don't have the same opportunity. And it just doesn't seem fair. We're a social group, and I know it's this time of year where courts are really booked early and the preferable times because of the heat, but it doesn't seem fair, that you should have courts booked for some people at that time. You don't know, and you're on there getting up early to do this when you may have stayed up till 12 or 1. And you're sitting there with a cup of coffee, watching it, ready and poised, and you can't do anything. You just can't. So it does not seem fair. We're all
Thank you.
paying the same fees. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you turn this off?
Just sort of.
But just a point of clarification, that Monday group has been disbanded because of the controversy that this rule has created. So just so that you know, there are no more people that are set aside. It was disbanded.
Okay. Why was it disbanded? Because of the
Because
controversy?
of the controversy that this whole thing started, because of the rule and what's happened here, it made it so difficult for the coordinators to keep this thing going with what was going on that they disbanded.
Okay.
You're talking about the Monday night,
Monday.
6 to 6, no.
No, Monday, women's.
Oh, the
mix and
women's?
match.
They do
So-
11 o'clock.
So this is not,
So this problem doesn't exist because this group does.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you, when it existed, Roger, your opinion, did you see this as unfair? What was going on where people were getting priority booking?
I don't see it as unfair. I really think that if this is done for a number of groups, and Charlie works to incorporate people that want to join those groups, that it's a fun way to play tennis. Trying to get courts for two teams or two courts for a particular date is extremely difficult.
Okay.
People love to play in a group where there's 3 courts playing. Charlie will incorporate people that want to play into those things. He will help with the program. I think it's a great way to have a lot of people play a lot of fun tennis.
Okay. Thank you, Roger.
If that's not an issue, and I guess I'm speaking to the board, we heard from the previous speaker who said she was up at 6:30 to book a court for this morning at 7:30,
No, that would be 3 days from now.
or 3 days.
I believe.
I'm sorry.
Am I correct on that? It would be you were talking about 3 days from now because you were up this morning doing it.
6:30, sitting.
that's a
Okay,
different,
I stand corrected.
that's a different issue.
Yeah, that's a different.
Different issue.
So other people are being put on for us.
Put on, by whom?
I don't know, but at 7:31 is when I finally could make a reservation. 7:30, they were all gone.
It's kind of like a COVID shot.
Well, I think one of the things we're gonna use for clarification is to get some, I think many of us have questions that we would ask Charlie.
Correct.
So, we will have our chance to do that. One of the things that Roger said, I've said again and again and again, I would like to see the racket committee and management bang this out. And I don't necessarily think it should be coming to us. I think it should have been settled. We have these committees. I think it should have been settled at the committee, and then they come to a consensus, they bring that to us, and we give the blessing. That's my own personal opinion, but I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say.
Board members, I think that we've heard from everybody, and the members of the public has had their opportunity. I recognize Mr. Lamb.
Yes,
still needs to make his presentation. So, should we proceed with Mr. Lamb
Yes.
at this point? Do you want to hear from staff?
Alan, I'm sorry I
What
delayed you.
direction would you like?
I think we should go ahead with Alan.
Okay, thank you.
So the public part is closed now?
Let's leave the public hearing open for the moment while he makes his
Oh,
presentation. I mean, it's your decision, but that's my recommendation.
Okay, that's the way it's done.
Okay, my name is Alan Lands.
Use the mic, please.
Excuse me?
Thank you.
You want me to use the mic?
Yeah.
No problem. My name is Alan Lands, and I'm on the recreational, the bracket advisory committee. I'm the chairman of the committee. And the good news really is that of the 10 rules that we've proposed, the opponents to Rule 1 don't oppose any of the other rules. So that's the good news. And we can get to Rule 1 a little later in my presentation, but we've really never had a study or the current rules analyzed in a long time, maybe 5 or 10 years. We do have some tennis rules, and we know that until recently, the tennis rules that we have not been enforced. Implementation of some new rules is long overdue. And the reason for that is we had a survey in 2017 and 2020, and we've had little or no response to the residents' needs that were indicated in that survey. Now, you can get a few speakers here. We get a few speakers on our public comment during our racket sports committee, but that's all anecdotal. We have, with regard to the other rules, we have statistical evidence and data to support the rules that two committees have enacted. And again, I emphasize that this Rule 1, for example, was enacted as all of the other rules, almost all the other rules, by two committees and for the most part unanimously. Now, no rule is going to be perfect. We know that. You're not going to satisfy everyone. But the rules that we debated twice, or maybe more than twice, are fair. And that's the most that you can ask for. When the POA and the CBD enacted the radar detector and the speed rules, a lot of people didn't like it. I didn't like it because I couldn't get to the River Club in 3 minutes anymore. It took me 4 minutes now. So I set my cruise control on 28. I've been doing that now for a year, and I didn't like the rule, but the rule was fair, and the rule definitely probably saved somebody's life or somebody from serious injury, because we all know that Florida leads the nation in pedestrian accidents. Okay, so the radar rule, thanks to Lou Perry, makes us a little safer. The ACC committee and the POA that sets the rules for our building, our landscaping, they make our community look good. Not everybody likes those rules on the ACC. A lot of people want to do what they want to do for their house, but we have to have those rules. So this rule 1, if we don't enact this rule 1, here's what's going to happen. There's a lot of things that are going to happen. Charlie then has full discretion to exercise favoritism. And any group, any social group, and there may be 20 social groups, different social groups that play tennis. Any social group then can go to Charlie or Denise and say, I want court time reserved at this time on this day of the week, every week. And that's what happened here. Now, to say that this Monday group folded because of the rule, that's not true. That's a false narrative. The rule is not in effect. Charlie knows the rule is not in effect. Charlie will not follow any of the rules that the Racket Sports Committee has recommended without you giving your stamp of approval. So he doesn't have to follow Rule 1. So another group can come to him and say, we want this time reserved. Now, historically, every mixer, every social intra-club mixer with Venetian residents has been open to all Venetian residents. And I don't think Charlie even allowed there to be segregation according to skill level or gender. For example, the Saturday mixer is open to males and females, really of any level. I played in the Saturday mixer when I first came here 8 years ago to meet tennis players. So that's the only mixer that Charlie has organized. That's it. One mixer on Saturday mornings. So all of a sudden, we hear about, the committee heard about that Charlie gave one group of social players, intra-club players, he gave them a set time and reserved and blocked their court so they don't have to get up in the morning. Now, there's a Saturday mixer, another mixer, that a woman organizes, a woman tennis player organizes, Hildy Ryan, and she has to get up, and all of the people that participate in her mixer have to get up and reserve their court. There are no social mixers, there are no social programs, there are no groups other than this one group in which Charlie gave them and blocked their time and didn't even come in front of our committee to say, should we be blocking time for social groups? So as Pam indicated, it's going to open up a Pandora's box. And without this rule, we know that Charlie's going to do this for this group and other groups. So we.
Come on.
Yeah, you got it.
You think Charlie has to come to your committee to get permission to do his job? Is that what you just said?
Well, I'm saying that Charlie should have told us
You just
that
said
he's
you should have asked
blocking, doing
to.
something completely different and blocking time for a social intra-club group that just involves the residents. Yes, he should have come to our committee, absolutely. Because otherwise, what are we there for? If we're there to discuss and debate programs for the general tennis community. The tennis community is close to 10% of the residents. And we actually had 148 residents that played 8 to 12 times a month. So there are quite a few tennis players that this is going to affect. Now, you have to understand something. The league players are only league players for 4.5 months. For 7.5 to 8 months, we're all social players. I'm a social player. I play with 8, 12, 16 guys. I want my time blocked at prime time. They want their time blocked at prime time. Now, let's understand exactly why they want this done. They didn't qualify for the Sarasota Women's League anymore. Their ratings were downgraded. They didn't qualify. Most of these ladies have played, excuse me. Most of these ladies have played in the main Sarasota League, which was the Tri-Cities League. The league didn't accept them back. So they have solutions. If they want their time blocked, here are some of the solutions. They can create an interclub, not intra, an interclub program by calling up other communities that are similarly situated. There've got to be other communities that didn't qualify for the Tri-Cities League, and they can form an interclub, and now they can have their time reserved, just like the 3 other ladies teams that we have at the Venetian. They could also form a USTA 3.0 team. These are options that they have. The main option is they can get up at 7:25 like every other social group and click and reserve their court, and then they can select whoever they want. Now, was there another problem? Yes. There were 3 or 4 ladies that wanted to be in this group that couldn't be in this group because they wanted their group to be exclusive. And we felt that we had to draw the line somewhere. When there's an intra-club program in which courts are blocked, and this is the first time this has ever happened in 15 years, where Venetian residents can block their own time because Charlie did it. And we felt that it was important that it be fair to everyone, that everyone has a chance to get in. So I don't understand why the group folded. I don't think the rule hasn't been in effect and won't be in effect unless you put it in effect. And if it doesn't go into effect, then you're going to have groups coming before you and saying, hey, why can't my social group have time blocked? You're going to have more aggravation than you had this morning from the small group of people that want exclusivity, and we want our intra-club programs to be inclusive so that all players have a chance to play. All right, so that's rule 1. Let me get to the other rules now.
One question about Rule 1,
Yeah.
just quickly. Do you feel, and I've asked this before, do you feel that there's room for mediation on this rule so that all the tennis players can come together and bang it out and present it to us in something that everybody agrees with, rather than having us making us become Sophie's choice kind of thing?
Well, you know that I did bang it out
Yes.
with Barb Jasper, and we had an agreement.
And Harry Orenstein became involved?
No, not on that one. That
Well,
was
in another, in another.
No, Barb and I hashed this out, and I agreed to present to committee, her proposal that we take out the second sentence of the rule so that it's a first come, first serve program and not an equity program. I don't like that, but I agreed to that. And then apparently, she was the leader of the group, and apparently she was then at some point in time withdrew her offer, and now I hear they're contesting the rule again. So we had an agreement, and then we didn't have an agreement. I thought we had an agreement. So we tried to hash it out, we were unable to do so.
Are you still willing to do that? Are you still willing to do that?
To do what?
To meet with, you said it was Mrs. Jasper?
Yeah.
Are you willing to meet with her again with your committee and try to come to a consensus on this? Or?
Well, is there a representative from
I don't know.
She's
I'll
not
call
here,
her.
so she's not here, so I can't speak for her. I'm certainly willing to discuss it, but I think you really should make a decision on this one. I mean, we tried to work it out. We thought we had it worked out. I thought I had it worked out. We sent you the email.
Yeah, I remember that.
She withdrew her objection to Rule 1, and apparently her representatives now are objecting to Rule 1. So I don't think there's anything further we can do.
Okay, as you say,
I think
though.
this is an important rule,
Right.
because if you don't enact this rule, then you're giving management the authority to grant special privileges to special groups. And
I
that's
hear
going
that.
to create
I
more
hear that.
complaints than you have today here, in my opinion.
So 9 out of 10 of these rules, there was only one person that I think of that spoke, had a concern about rule number 2. But otherwise, there was no concern about rules 3 through 10.
Right, rule number 2 really is just to advertise the programs that fit within rule number 1. We want those programs advertised, so if a new resident comes in, or if someone who wants to be in this Monday program, if they're not invited, if it's advertised, then they're invited.
Okay.
We want them invited, we want them to be included, because there were women who were excluded. I'm not gonna name who they were. All right, let me get on to rules.
Let me just interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah.
I apologize, but in case it's after I've exited, I don't know where the conversation's going. I don't know what decisions you will or won't make today. If for whatever reason you decide that you want further discussion, because this is just so much fun, you do have the opportunity to continue the public hearing. But if you choose to do that, just keep in mind it will need to be to a date, time, and place certain. And if you do that, we will not need to re-advertise. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Maybe a point of order to move this along a little bit. If there's general consensus on all of the other rules, which
No,
there is not,
no, not even close.
I just,
What they're saying is nobody objected in the audience, but.
But staff might have
okay,
differing
all right,
opinion.
all right.
That's correct.
Let's let you move along now.
Okay.
With all due respect, should we maybe ask the tennis director to comment on all of these things that were said? Because some of it I felt were false, where he explains how this program came about that he did.
I certainly want to hear from
Yeah.
Charlie.
And let
Is
me,
this an all or none?
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but to Steve's point, okay, so we heard nobody from the public seemed to have any objections to rules 3 through 10.
Right.
So let me ask a question. Does staff, of any of those rules, is staff in agreement with those? Maybe we can put those aside as not having to discuss.
Thank you.
No, I sent a red letter, thing, and some of them I don't object to.
Okay, so which ones are those? And then maybe we could, like I
Right,
said,
that's
set
what
those
I'm trying to
aside
get to.
and only have to debate the ones for which there's still some
Thank you.
questions about.
Well, number one,
Number one, we know there's an issue. Number one, we know there's an issue. Let's go to the other.
Number 2 is advertising, that's not a rule, that's just,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
done, it's advertised, it's just, that's not even a rule.
Okay.
Number 3, yes.
It's
I
not a
have-
rule, but we want your stamp of approval.
We've got an issue with 1 and 2 so far.
But we advertise, we do it, it's no issue there. Number 3, there is, absolute objection to that.
Who made 11 o'clock prime time?
It is
Alan?
not prime time,
Alan?
the committee.
All right, so number
Take a
three.
look at rule number 9.
Let's go through it. Let's go through them, Al.
Answer Mr. McCafferty's question.
Yeah,
And the committee voted 7-0 to include 11 a.m. in prime time.
Alan.
Is that the committee's responsibility to set what prime time is, or is that the pros? I'm just confused.
What I'm trying to get to is if we have an objection with number 3, I want to hear the whole thing. I'm trying to at least understand which ones we have harmony on.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
all I'm asking.
Do we have what on?
Harmony, agreement. So far, 1, 2, and 3, no.
Yeah.
No, we still have issues.
Correct.
Number 4,
Number 4, I agree with, except it has the 11 o'clock in there, that has to be
Yeah.
taken out.
Okay.
That'll be
Question.
under
all right, so we have a problem with number 4.
Number 5, we agree,
Okay,
So 5 is good.
yep.
yes.
5 is grouped with 10, so you agree with 10? It's the same,
It's the same thing. It's
basically the same thing.
One quick
Well,
question.
let's give her a chance.
We'll have a question on 5, just
Yeah,
a
I'm with you. I'm with you.
clarification.
Please go ahead.
I'm willing to agree to it, I just where it says non-residents who are not non-resident members.
Right.
That's referring to do we have any non-resident members?
We do have a couple.
A couple. So that's who that is
Yeah,
referring
so
to.
that means those who are not residents, but they're paying.
But they're paying, this doesn't affect, okay, I just want to understand, then I agree with 5.
Okay, so
I'm cool
5
with
we
5.
agree with.
4, we agree with 5.
4 and 5's okay. 6?
Number 6.
Yes or no,
It's a
Denise?
guideline.
Yes or no?
It says you shouldn't fill in names.
No, I don't agree.
No. Okay, so we got a problem with 6. 7?
Number 7 was a request to a rule. It was done. It's
7 is
not-
done. We'll withdraw
It's not a
7.
rule.
Okay, we're good. 7, we're good with.
6 is not a
8?
female rule. Number 8. Number 8 is in the actual rules and regulations, and I think it should be discussed there.
Okay, so we have a problem with 8.
Number 8 should be,
Further discussion.
yeah,
Further dis-
discussion in the actual.
Okay,
rules
number
and
9?
regs.
Back to the-
Prime time hours defined is where I was saying the 11 o'clock, so I have an issue with
Okay,
that.
number 10?
And number 10, they want to do guest fees all year round, and we're in agreement.
Okay,
with
so
that if the board-
So the facts of the matter are, there are more issues with a number of rules than consensus with the proposals.
Correct.
With
Okay,
management.
with management, okay.
And with some board members.
Okay, now, I was trying to get some clarification, because I thought we were only dickering with perhaps 1 and 2. We've got many more.
4 of them seem to be 4 out of 6. 4 out of 10 seem to be okay.
So the majority are not okay, or have issues.
Need discussion.
Need discussion.
Okay, thank you,
5
thank you.
5 out of 10.
Okay, so
Let me ask another issue here. I want to just comment about what the chairman said. I'm still very uncomfortable sitting here and making determinations about which rule is good and which rule isn't good. I would feel much more comfortable to spend some quality time between the committee, the management team, and a representative, and maybe it's Roger, or somebody that can get some unanimity here. We're pitting one group against another group, and
not
that,
really, not
well,
really. because
well-
we have the data to show that the residents overwhelmingly want Rule 3 and 4, overwhelmingly.
well, Alan,
We have 300 residents. that we serve.
Alan, with due deference, a lot of people spoke against it today here. Where are those other people?
But this
is anecdotal, Steve. You can't go in there.
But that's,
No,
well, all right. I'm still of the opinion that it's a better situation if our community works together to resolve this rather than bringing it to us. If we're going to sit here and make decisions on rules that we're not fully informed on and that we don't fully have unanimity on, I'm uncomfortable. with that.
We're an advisory committee. We're supposed to advise you as to what the residents, the tennis residents want. That's our job.
I
And
think,
we're doing that through the survey and through committee meetings and debates. What else, that, we might as well not have the committee. We can't agree with management.
I
We tried-
wholeheartedly agree.
Well,
We tried to agree with management, and they won't agree to these things that the residents want Rule won by a 3-to-1 ratio in 2020 and a 6-to-1 ratio in 2017.
Well,
And management has still not responded to the desires of the residents.
Okay, well,
That's what our job is, to tell you, what do the residents want? And we can't get it from management. We tried.
Well,
We tried to do exactly what you said.
Then I'd like to hear the reason why they disagree.
That's fine.
All right, I'll yield.
Okay. No, I've already said it. I would like to see there be discussion and compromise, rather than coming to us to make the decision. I hear what you're saying about inequities, and I disagree with anything that's inequitable. And anybody that's getting privileged treatment as opposed to everybody else having to wait there until the clock hits 7:30, that's bothersome to me. But again, I want to hear what our tennis professional has to say as well.
May I make a comment regarding the surveys? Surveys, yeah, they give you people's opinion, but one must be extremely careful with going with a survey. If I put out a survey tomorrow and say, how many would like to have their CDD fees cut in half? You would overwhelmingly, you would have 5% that wouldn't, because they're smart enough to know it would destroy this community. But believe you me, you would have overwhelming people wanting to do that, but it doesn't make it right just because people want to do it.
We had the same survey questions in 17 and 20, and we got the same results from a statistically significant population. So we know that you can extend that population even to the people that didn't answer the survey, and within a 95% confidence interval, you would get the same results. So for question 3, which is not allowing bowl machines or lessons during prime time, and I told you that last time, that if you have a court, one of 6 courts, with one person taking a lesson or one person using a bowl machine, you reduce occupancy by 12.5%. And over time, that does add up. Now, in 2017, it was a 6-to-1 ratio. In 2020, 57% to 19% wanted that rule. They did not want to see during prime time one person on the court. Now, last night I got this. Of course, I wasn't copied on the email, but it was sent to me by a supervisor, the liaison of our committee. This handout that Charlie's probably going to speak about. So it goes up to February of 2021. And basically, if you look at, and I calculated March of 2021 as well, but if you look at February of 2020, 97% of the court time was filled, and there was 3% of the court time during prime time that wasn't filled in February of 2020. So there had to be multiple occasions where people got up in the morning and couldn't get a court. We don't want that to happen. We want to minimize that occurrence. And the way you minimize it is by maximizing the number of people who play tennis on the court, just the same way you would in golf. You wouldn't let singles go out every day on a Saturday at 9 o'clock because you wouldn't maximize the golf court usage. It's the same thing with tennis. We want to maximize usage. And if you have 3% or 5% of unused courts, that's fine. There's no problem with that, because if you read Rule 3 carefully, it says, if on the day there's no reservation on a particular court, go ahead, Charlie, give your lesson if you have a student. Or somebody uses the ball machine. If on that day, that's the out that you have there. And you also have an out at 11. 11 is like a hybrid prime time. At 11, if you have 4 students, go ahead and give your lesson. If you have 4 people that want to use the ball machine, go ahead and use the ball machine, because the occupancy of the courts is the same. It's 4 people, whether they're playing doubles, taking a clinic with Charlie or Jake, or using the ball machine. That's provided for in the rule.
When I came here this morning, there was a gentleman out with the ball machine, I think it's court 6.
Okay.
One guy on the ball machine. I asked Charlie about it as I came in, and he said, yeah, the court was open a day ago. He made a reservation, he's using the ball machine.
Right.
I don't understand why we have to make a rule when the procedure that's in place is the same as this rule. The only difference, Alan, is you've added this 11 o'clock as prime time. If everybody agrees that 11 o'clock is prime time, if Charlie agrees and Denise agree, I'm fine with that. I don't understand why we're wasting our time talking about something that isn't broken again.
No, his rule is saying that Charlie cannot have a member come to him and want a lesson during prime time.
October 8th.
I have no problem with that.
Well, there is a problem. These are members too that are paying the same amount.
One person on the court as opposed to 4.
But you remember everybody saying they're waiting for that button, waiting for that button, waiting for that button? That's day 3. We do not book on day 3. We wait, okay, everybody's got your 7:30, you've all done. The next day is when we say, okay,
That's the
there's a
2
court
part,
open,
right.
you may book your lesson.
Right.
And it's a member who comes to us and says, we want that. That's on day 2. And then we don't even let them do the ball machine on day 2. On day 1, day before, somebody
Which is
says,
what probably happened this
"There's still
morning."
a court open. Can I do the ball machine tomorrow? And we say, yes. It's
Yeah.
called the 3-2-1 system. So that day where everybody does at 7 o'clock, we don't touch the courts. We give them that whole 24-hour to do their booking.
So it's
And
fair.
then it's on the second day before that a member can come and say, Charlie, can we do a lesson, whether it's 1, 2, 3 people? There are open courts, why not? Instead of saying, no, you may not.
Board
If
members.
we don't have these.
Let me interrupt you for a second, I'm sorry, but I'm just seeing that this is gonna take an awful long time, obviously.
already
Yeah,
has.
we have to,
We want everybody to have their say,
Mhm.
absolutely, but we need to determine a process. Do you want to have Mr. Lands make his presentation and then have staff make their presentation, or do you want to continue with this up and back?
I'd like Alan to complete his presentation and then get staff input,
Conclude in a timely manner,
hopefully.
please.
So basically, Rule 3 will maximize court usage. That's, and this graph that Charlie put together really supports what we're saying. And what he doesn't include in this graph is how many days of the month residents could not get courts during the prime time. Most of the open courts that he cites are at 8 a.m. to 9:30, but at 9:30, they're almost all full. And again, this graph, most of the months, 95% of the prime time courts are taken, and maybe there's 3 to 5% open, and that's okay. That's not a problem, because that means we have some flexibility and more people are getting their courts. If you allow for lessons, one person using a court for lessons with ball machine, a lot less people are going to be able to use the courts, even though the graph will indicate that the court is being used. Okay, the playing for more than one session. We have players that play for 3 hours.
Yeah, 4 and 5 are okay.
What's that?
4 and 5, I don't think anybody,
Right,
there was no issue.
but Denise is objecting to 11 a.m. We felt that in season, 11 a.m. is a very desired time. It's almost as desired as 9:30, but not quite, but it's more desired in some cases than 8 a.m. So we felt, we discussed this, that prime time should now be defined, and again, we're getting to number 9, should now be defined as three time periods.
3 sessions.
8, 9:30, and 11. And we want to make sure that management makes sure that somebody doesn't play singles for 3 hours or doubles for 3 hours, or a player doesn't play on court 1 and then go to court 3 and play for 3 hours. We want to get as many people playing tennis as possible. We couldn't agree with management on this. That's why we're advising you. We're your advisory committee. That's what we are. Okay, the $10 fee, that's acceptable. Right now we get to number 8, which is
Let's stick with number 5 for a second.
Oh, sure.
About this waiving of these fees, May 1st to September. When we go to rule number 10, they're all year long, correct? So
Correct.
we're not waiving fees any longer. It's.
We have to vote on that.
Well, we're
What-
waiving,
what are
we're
you-
waiving the fees for the house guests.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
Right, we're not waiving fees any longer for,
You're suggesting that the $10 fee be all year long and that we stop
correct,
giving away tennis?
Yes.
correct. We have 17 clubs that we researched.
Yeah.
We're the only club. that
I've seen the
does
list.
that.
Yeah. I lost that battle last time. I might be more successful today. I hope so.
Should I move on to number 8?
Yes, please.
Okay, so number 8, on the tennis reservation court website, it said,
No. You sure?
Here, you take mine, Steve.
No,
I've got
mine's
it.
dead.
It's
Mine's
good.
dead.
I have my own.
Okay, thank you, we're good.
Sorry,
Battery
Alan.
just went dead on mine.
here's a copy of the rules.
Nah, thank you.
that?
Yeah, thank you. The battery went dead on
No
this.
problem.
We were actually on number 6.
Yeah, number 6, we had a period of time where one of the social groups on Sunday, a different social group, that was reserving 5 courts. They were having people get up in the morning and reserve 5 courts, but they were only filling in 2 names on each court, and Charlie was apparently filling in the balance of the names. So those residents, again, who have a social program that they create, that are reserving their own courts, should have to put all 4 names in and reserve all of their courts without assistance. Because again, that program is not open to all residents. It's open to whomever the organizer of that social program allows in the social program. And it's the same thing with the Saturday program. There's another Saturday social program that's a large program. I'm talking about the large program. There may be 20 different social programs in the nation. Some of them only involve 4 people, some 8, some 12, and some 20, 16 or 20. So, yeah, that's an important rule. The last rule, I guess, is 8. And 8 is the one that, again, the River Club rule says 2 times in season you can be a guest here at the Venetian. Now, whether you want to apply this rule to the pool and the gym, that's not our province anymore because we're just the racket sports committee now.
Right.
But you should know that Denise believes that someone can come to the pool or the gym 365 days a year. But as far as tennis is concerned, we only want guests twice a month in season. Exactly what your rule says, and we don't want it applied differently. We don't think management should have the discretion to change the guest rule, the River Club guest rule. And they obviously have changed the River Club guest rule.
And it's your belief, if what I understand it correctly, Alan, that if you have a guest, if you have Keith Livermore as your guest twice in the month of May, Pam Perry can't invite him twice in the month of May either. His 2-time playing is done, and
Exactly.
it doesn't, right.
That's why we added the last sentence.
Right.
The guest limits can't be increased when the same guest is hosted by a different resident.
Yeah, I just wanted
We thought
that
that's
clarified.
important.
Yeah.
And we also thought that starting October 1st rather than November 1st is important, because generally that's considered in season, October through April. So we wanted the dates changed and we wanted the last sentence added.
Okay.
You know, and again, we've made every effort during our meetings to try to work these things out, and we're unable to do so. So we have a committee, 2 committees that unanimously believe that these rules are beneficial to our residents and that will be fair to our residents. Management disagrees with that. So we're advising you that unfortunately we have a conflict and we're asking you to resolve the conflict. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Alan, I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Just one moment, I'm sorry
Fine.
again to interrupt, but board members, I need to exit, but
Yes.
Jeannie gets you in here at this lovely conversation. Good luck to everybody.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
I kind of get the feeling in the back of my head that team tennis is something we're not talking about here. And I wonder how many women's teams are there?
They're anticipated there will be 3 women's teams in the fall. Okay, go ahead, Pam.
No, we're gonna have the 3-5 team.
Just give me the number.
There's going to be one competitive team that's gonna be playing USTA. The other one, they're in the middle of taking the survey of 3-0 players, and the other one is a social interclub.
There's 4 then. There's the ladies 3-0, the ladies 3-5, the ladies interclub.
We're gonna take a break here at any
3-0,
point.
3-5.
Yeah, as soon as we finish.
I'm coming up with 3 teams based upon.
4 to 6 teams.
Based upon the spreadsheet.
How many?
4 confirmed teams, possibly 5 or 6. But women?
And when do they practice?
What 4 teams are you talking about, Charlie?
There's
You're talking
another
about the
interclub
interclub?
on Monday perhaps that wants to play, and there's still a possibility the other 3-5 team might be formed.
That's not on your spreadsheet.
Not to
4
our
teams for
knowledge,
sure,
they
there's still
incorporated
maybe
into
2
our
more teams, we
existing
don't know.
3-5 team.
That always changes.
Yeah, it's gonna be 1 3-5.
I mean, this is a spreadsheet that Charlie gave us on Thursday. And
All right,
that
Alan, when do they
spreadsheet-
practice?
Well, not all the teams practice.
They just play?
Very few, on the men's side, only 1 team practices.
Okay.
That I'm aware of.
So team practice is not an issue? Taking courts
No,
from?
we have to point and click just like everybody else does if we want to.
Could you use a mic, please?
Oh, sure. We have to point and click like everybody else does if we want to practice. I mean, we don't play once a week. We like to play together more than once a week, usually.
So courts are not set aside for practice?
No.
Do women belong to more than one team?
Good. Do women belong to more than one team? I think that the interclub team might intersect with the ladies 3-5 team. Is that right, Pam? So certainly women play on the 3-5 team and also on the women's interclub.
Yes, and also on the. And also social players play on my interclub. Yeah.
Right.
So the answer is yes, they play on multiple teams.
Yes. I think the maximum is 2.
Is there a team that has to play all their home matches during prime time because it's a league rule?
No. The leagues require you to start by 12 noon.
Okay, there isn't one that's supposed to, that makes us play earlier?
And I'm going to try to persuade the men's league to start us at 12:30 rather than 12, so that we have more time in the morning for the social groups.
And how many men's teams do we have?
We have, I believe, 7.
And they don't practice during prime time either?
Traditionally, the 2 60s third division teams practice together at the same time during prime time.
But they have to do the button thing at 7:30?
Exactly, and if they don't, we practice in the afternoon or at another time, if we can't get the time in the morning.
And how many men play on multiple teams?
How many men play on multiple teams? That's a good question. I mean.
Well, go ahead.
I mean, I'd have to think about.
I'm just wondering if there are too many teams. I managed a tennis court, or a tennis club for years, and we never had people play on multiple teams. It was very competitive to get on a team, but once you were on, that you played on one team. You might sub when there was an opening, but, I'm just trying to get a handle on this.
Charlie has not made an effort to limit the number of teams the men can play on. And on our 60s team this year, we enacted a rule that you cannot play on more than 2 teams. We had gentlemen playing, insisting that they wanted to play, that they were 80, they wanted to play on 60s, 70s, 80s, and 75s. We said, no, that's not going to happen anymore. But only Charlie, management, this is an instance where management can take a leadership role. Management can limit the number of teams a man or woman can play on. They can do that. Maybe Roger is going to recommend that. Would you recommend that, Roger? That we eliminate some men's teams? Would you do that? Which teams would you eliminate? Which team?
How about the second 70s?
That's not discussion.
That's not a fair, that's.
Okay.
How about the first 70s team?
I need to interject. There's a lot of sidebar conversations.
Okay, all right,
and
so just the overall then, the team tennis is not a problem with courts.
Team tennis is dominant. You have way more players in the Venetian, tennis players that play on teams that don't play on teams. The vast majority of players play on teams.
Right.
And
By
my last count, there were 110 players that were rostered on a team, on at least one team, 110 players. So that's the dominant, majority in the Venetian, the competitive tennis player that plays interclub. And it was the women who spoke today in opposition to Rule 1, they were part of that for 10 or 15 years. They were part of that. They would never have wanted to have a social time blocked for them if they were able to be in a league. But that didn't happen. It's unfortunate.
How can you speak about
I need to interject, supervisors,
Yeah.
because we have a lot of sidebar conversations in the background. Remind your audience members, we are recording this meeting and the recorder does pick up the conversations and it makes it very difficult for us to transcribe the minutes. So I ask that you please not have sidebar conversations during the presentation. As well, supervisors, the agreement was for Mr. Lance to make his presentation and then you would allow management to speak.
Yes.
It seems that there's a lot of back and forth in between, and at this point, we're not gonna make any progress if we continue on the path that we're in.
Okay.
If the board would like, we can go to a break and let Mr. Lance continue his
Well,
presentation.
I
are you
was
done?
just answering a question from
Okay.
the supervisor.
Okay, so
Thank you.
you're basically,
Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Alan. I'm going to suggest that we do take a break now. When we come back, we'll have management answer some of these concerns.
Okay, so